asleep?
I think so.
He sure is one lazy Mickey.
Hi everybody, it's Radio Free Internet, episode 275. Y'all like death metal demos?
Yes.
Well, of course you do. Death metal demos are great. And that's what we're going to be covering this week. Some dank death metal demos. DDD. Triple D.
This is Diners, Drive-Ins, and...
Now look, I'm not one of those tryhards that's always going on and on about how the demos is always better than the album.
Big ass cigar, more like big ass fart sniffer, comma, gay. You know, screw you, dude.
In fact, when there are multiple versions of a song around on both the demos and the full length, I tend to prefer the studio album version. Case in point, one of my favorite bands of all time, Deceased, initially put forth one of their best songs, Nuclear Exorcist, on the 1989 demo of the same name. If you don't know Deceased, you really need to listen to them. I explained why in episode 123, but here's a shorter version. I guarantee that this incredibly well-constructed transition riff is why bands like Suffocation were wearing Deceased shirts in the early 90s. And they were doing shit like this in 1989. Totally ahead of its time in terms of depth of death metal songwriting. And this gets weirder from there. What's this? Wacky clean guitar interlude section in a death metal song in 1989. You thought Opeth were innovators? Psh, even the lead guitar here sounds like something Opeth might have done with that weird kind of sliding sound. And yet Deceased keeps it completely morbid and death metal. Instead of putting flowers in the album cover and singing about their ex-girlfriend. And this lead guitar melody right here is kind of the best thing ever. Overall, high-quality demo-era Deceased song. But the official studio version they put out 3 years later on the 13 Frightened Souls EP absolutely destroys the demo version.
이번에 처음으로
See? I can already hear the old heads out there telling me I'm spreading misinformation. But I think that actually listening to the album will prove that I am correct. I mean, it starts out with the same basic riff set, but watch how they hit that transition riff this time around in the studio version. Way fucking heavier. Listen to that bass bite and those drums snap. Spectacular, brutal as shit. And that clean section, oh, it's way better this time around as well. You get that weird watery clean guitar tone. King Fowley's vocals, way more distinctive this time around. Sort of this like suffering rasp death croak thing. I don't know, maybe some people would like a more standard performance, but I think this is way fucking dank. It fits the tone of the song a whole lot better. But here is the main difference from the demo version. That lead guitar section is just so much heavier and more unique. It's like if Vanilla Road started playing death metal or something. It's just got this like soulful tone to it that I can't get enough of. I mean, I bought this EP at a cheapo used store probably in like 2010, and I still listen to this song at least once a week. Similarly, I think, you know, with another one of my favorite death metal bands, Dismembered, the version of the song Dismembered on the Like an Ever-Flowing Stream album completely destroys the Reborn in Blasphemy demo version, particularly as far as lead guitar goes.
Versus No Contest.
Come on now, you got ears, you know which of those was better. Basically what I'm saying is, there's plenty of cases where I prefer the album version of a band to the demo version. That's not what we're talking about this week, however. This week we're talking about stuff where the demo, at least in my opinion, because yeah, you gotta specify that on the internet, is way fucking better than when the band started doing albums. First up, we got a pretty obscure band from France called Fate. They only ever did one full length way back in the year 2000, and I mean, it's okay. It's certainly ahead of its time. I mean, these guys were doing obnoxious, spazzy death metal way before that was cool. But compared to a lot of modern day spaz death, I don't hate it. It's sort of an interesting historical curiosity in that regard, and it has a decent groove to it. But then, this happens. No, I did not edit in the Homeboy DJ scratch, and they actually thought that was a good idea.
That's Dance with Another Man metal there, right there, brah. And if that's what you're gonna do, that's cool, but just saying. We'll go over here with that silly ass fucking baggy pants, fucking yo. Gold chain fucking boombox on the shoulder, hat on sideways, goddamn with an Ohio State fucking flat brim.
Yeah, no, the full-length album from Fate is a whole can of
Jeez, dude.
that you don't really want to open unless it's a particularly rainy day and you're particularly depressed and in need of something to laugh at. However, their 1996 demo is in a completely different style, featuring completely different songs, and it's one of the best death metal demos I ever did here. It's like if Testimony of the Ancients era Pestilence or Shadows era Creep Mind decided to write a Suffocation album. Utterly unique blend of melody, progressivism, and brutality. With exceptionally clever songwriting, check out this cheeky little reworking of that chuggy intro riff going on right here. It's got that heavy usage of pinch harmonics from the full length, but instead of just being goofy spazzy shit, it actually adds the melodic character of the song itself in a meaningful way. Also watch this smooth fucking transition into a tremolo picked riff. They didn't even stop the song itself, they just kind of morphed one riff into the other, and it was really fucking cool. And they start adding some more cool like layered melodic lead guitar mixed into that very devastating tremolo pick guitar riff. Fantastic stuff. And then it loops back around into that cool chug riff from earlier. Shit's gonna get all crazy with some of that classic, you know, fucking like transition into an even cooler tremolo pick section that harkens back to the one from earlier, but is even more dissonant and eerie. Also get a load of that bass guitar with wacky arpeggiated hammer-on pull-off runs. Straight up early album at the gate shit. Despite what you may have been led to believe, first At the Gates album is the best one. And the first Fate demo is the best thing Fate ever released. I'm pretty sure if you've got ears for death metal, you'd probably agree with me on that. But then I'm going to drop a hotter take, because we're going to be talking about Crypticaragus. Unlike Fate, I actually really do enjoy Crypticaragus' sole full-length album. A lot of times I see these guys get lumped in with like early melodic death metal. I'd say it's more a case of like with the Second Sentence album, where they're just so weird and avant-garde that they don't really fit anywhere else. It's more just like weird, psychotic, technical, thrashy death metal. This riff fucking slaps, and it reminds me of my favorite riff on the third Gorefest album. Always a good sign. Speaking of technical thrashy shit, sometimes they start to sound like Vector. Except that, you know, it's friggin' 15 years before Vector. Real fucking wacky outer space death metal shit. We're coming up on a part here after this lead guitar bit where I can kind of see where people are coming from, labeling this melodic death metal. At the same time, this honestly just still sounds like very fast, heavy on the tremolo pick, weird tech thrash death metal to me. Whatever it is, it's friggin' great. Crypticaragus slaps. I've seen people compare them to Faith No More, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you even talking about?
You are all weirdos.
But as much as I enjoy Crypticaragus' World of Myths full length, it doesn't hold a candle to their very first demo, which was in a completely different style, and I absolutely would have killed for a whole album to be recorded in this style. Some of the darkest, nastiest death metal I've ever heard. Fittingly enough, it starts out with a very dark, nasty, heavy synth intro that does a particularly good job of setting the scene for the carnage that is about to unfold.
우리 동아리 실세는 바로
It's taken too long and you're bored. Come on, man, let them cook.
Why don't you just have some fucking patience?
난힘 깐나파.
See, I told you this shit was heavy. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, this is the heaviest death metal ever got. I mean, what, Bolt Thrower?
Just get lost, brah, brah.
Ripaculo?
Get out of here.
Frozen Souls? Sangoiska Bog?
Get out of here.
Are you hearing how dark that guitar sound is? How thick that fucking snare drum is? And how great these riffs are? This is like total World War I, dying of poison gas in the trenches music. Certainly fits that description way better than any of the fucking war metal crap people tell me to listen to. And I fucking love those layered guitars. Those are delectable. Check out this breakdown. Let most controversial stance on this is going to be, this is literally just Bolt Thrower, but way fucking better. I don't even care, dude. Fight me. This is like a double breakdown, dude. Check this shit. Like, you thought they were done breaking it down. They had just started to break it down. And they even have the foresight to layer in this really cool sort of autopsy style, spooky little extra layer of melody. Fantastic. They do a funny little trick here where you think it's all over. They can't possibly get any heavier. This has to be the end of the song. Right? I mean, they're fading out. Hell no, bitch. They come back in and end the song with the best riff of the song. You see what I mean? This is totally Bolt Thrower influence. Very obviously so, but way fucking heavier than any Bolt Thrower shit out there, if you ask me. All the Cryptic Care stuff is really great. Their other demos are great too, but those are definitely more just building up to what they would do on the full length. The only demo they got that sounds like this is that very first demo from 1991. And like I said earlier, it kills me there isn't a whole album just in this style. It would be so fucking good. We're gonna stick in Sweden for our final band with everybody's favorite, Dan Svano.
어플로 주문을 하던가?
No, I'm not gonna try and claim that Edge of Sanity's demos are better than the albums.
Come on now.
We're gonna be talking about his other band.
분기반장을 잘할 수 있어.
Not Infest Dead either. His other band, pan.thy.monium, whose full-length album material, I guess you could sort of compare to Crypticaragus's in that it's really avant-garde and intentionally strange, but doing so in the context of a much different style of death metal. On their full-length albums, Pandemonium at times sound like a much weirder Edge of Sanity with a whole lot of jazz influence and a whole lot of keyboards, way more than would be normal for death metal in the early 90s. And despite what it might sound like, that's not actually Dan Svano on vocals, it's Robin Carlson, who way later on would go to be a whole lot more famous in Scar Symmetry. In fact, pretty much everything's all mixed up here. Dan Svano does bass and keyboards. The guitarists are Dan's older brother, Dag, and Robert Iverson, who was the bassist for Ophthalmia. The only guy that's doing anything normal is poor old Benny Larson on the drums, who also was in Edge of Sanity. Anybody know what happened to that guy? I always liked his style, and I haven't heard him on anything after, like, the early 2000s. Anyways, as you're probably able to tell just from these short samples, this band's kind of all over the place. The songs end up sounding kind of random. A whole lot of stops and starts, weird bits stitched together. At times, it's like a much less organized theory, and the component parts themselves are very interesting. Specifically, I'm enjoying these bass bits here that remind me a lot of the second Carbonized album. But a lot of times, this stuff is just too random for the sake of being random for me.
What the hell was that?
Oh, you mean the, Yeah, it does that. So Dan Svano's kind of a weirdo, and this is peak Dan Svano being a weirdo, this fucking band. Or at least they are in the full-length albums. The demos, however, or more specifically their first demo, is actually a lot more coherent and interesting, at least to my ears. This was actually the first Pandemonium stuff I ever heard, because a track from this demo, entitled, Cleavage? Or maybe Xenotaph. It's tricky. All the titles on pretty much all their shit are just like taking words and then scrambling them into random nonsense. Kind of like a Demolic type thing. On my copy of the reissue of the demo, it says Xenotaph is the song title, and then Cleavage is the song after it. But like I said, that's a reissue. Whereas on the place I first heard it, the Pantalgia compilation, which came out in 1992, I believe, utilizes the first title. What I'm saying is, I don't know what the fuck this song is called, but whatever you call it, it's fantastic, just like the rest of the demo. Boom, first note, already way heavier than any of the Pandemonium full lengths. More importantly, this is also a really interesting, boomy sort of riff that integrates the keyboards very well before jumping right into some quality brutal death metal riffs. And I don't mean like the genre brutal death metal. I mean death metal riffs that have a real sense of brutality to them. Also, I really just love the production on this demo. Thick fucking guitar, big fat snare sound, loud fucking bass. But most importantly, as weird as this music can get, it still all seems very orchestrated and coherent in a way that later Pandemonium straight up isn't. Like right here's a good example. This is definitely an intentionally weird riff, but it's also a very memorable riff. And the way it links up with the keyboards here is also super fucking cool. And the drums here are pretty unique because I believe this is the only time I've ever heard Benny Larson do a blast beat before. And it's a pretty darn good one. But the main attraction is of course the guitars, which are grinding out this sort of prong if they were a death metal band type of riff. Years before Grave did the same thing on Soulless, honestly. 3 guitar sections. 1, they aren't too long. 2, they aren't too silly. And 3, they really are memorable in their own right. And when that heavy guitar comes back, it hits all the harder for those little interludes. Also, this Robin Carlson character on vocals does a damn good job. Real hoarse, deep, sort of death metal grunt shout type things. Like for years, I actually thought it was Dan Swano doing those vocals. It sounds a whole lot like him. And if you know how I feel about Dan Swano's vocals, you know that's pretty high praise. So there you go. 3 demos that I think are honestly better than any of the band's full lengths. There's other cases of this as well. If anybody out there insinuates that this is the case with Morbid Angel, you're a big dummy.
We tried to tell him, but he's too stupid to see it.
I don't know where this cavalcade of goofballs appeared out of nowhere over the past few years trying to tell me Altars of Madness is overrated, but you're silly. But there are a lot of great death metal demos out there. There's a lot of great black metal demos out there. There's a lot of great any kind of metal demos out there. And I thought it might be fun to talk about something a little bit out of the ordinary for a change. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to me jabber on about it, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching or listening or whatever you did. Bye-bye.
To all the babies, mamas, baby mamas, yeah, go like, I'm sorry, Miss Jackson, ooh, I am for real.